The story begins with the sharp, rhythmic clacking of high heels against the polished marble floor slices through the ambient murmur of the grand ballroom. A woman of high status navigates the hall, her presence commanding immediate, albeit whispered, attention from the surrounding aristocracy. The onlookers, faces obscured or turned away, exchange hushed remarks, their gossip swirling around the figure of Cecilia Fregato, the daughter of the Duke. She is an image of deliberate excess. Her hair is styled in elaborate, heavy ringlets that cascade down her back, and she is adorned in a dress so flamboyant it borders on theatrical. Her face bears the weight of harsh, intense makeup, a mask that draws critical eyes and sharp tongues. To the whispering crowd, she appears not as a noble lady, but as a caricature, a villainess plucked straight from the pages of a dramatic story. Cecilia walks with a practiced gait, outwardly ignoring the friction of the whispers that label her future prospects with disdain. The courtiers speculate on the absurdity of this woman becoming the future queen, casting doubt on her suitability as the fiancée of the kingdom of Travania's first prince, Hubert. Yet, beneath the layers of powder and the stiffness of her lace, Cecilia harbors a singular, desperate motivation. She orchestrates this gaudy appearance, the revealing dress, the heavy cosmetics, the pretense of being a foolish woman, solely to curry favor with her betrothed. She suppresses her true nature, burying her desires under the guise of stupidity, convinced that this facade is the key to winning Prince Hubert Ray Travania's heart. She has worn this mask for so long that the deception has calcified into a second skin. She has become accustomed to falsifying her own existence, believing her own feelings are irrelevant in the face of this political union. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the hall shifts violently as Prince Hubert himself commands the room's attention. He stands resplendent in his royal military-style attire, his expression hard and unyielding. With a sweeping gesture of his hand, he silences the crowd and addresses the assembly with a declaration that shatters the fragile pretense Cecilia has maintained. He proclaims that his own feelings have been disregarded for the sake of political convenience, but he will tolerate it no longer. As Cecilia looks on, her eyes widening in confusion, Hubert points an accusing finger and delivers the coup de grace. He announces the annulment of his engagement to Lady Cecilia. The declaration strikes the room like a physical blow. The crowd erupts into a cacophony of gasps and confused murmurs. Cecilia stands frozen, the shock draining the color from her face beneath the makeup. Hubert continues, undeterred by the scandal he is inciting. He pulls a woman from the crowd to his side, a woman with softer features and a more demure appearance, and declares her to be his true, destined partner. He demands the immediate abolition of his ties to the Fregato house. Cecilia stares at the scene, her mind struggling to process the betrayal. The woman beside Hubert looks at Cecilia with a gaze that feigns shock but carries an undercurrent of triumph. The shock proves too great for Cecilia's constitution. Her vision blurs, the world tilts on its axis, and she collapses to the floor as darkness overtakes her consciousness. Time passes, marked by the transition from the harsh lights of the ballroom to the soft, filtered light of a noble's bedchamber. Cecilia stirs, a heavy, throbbing sensation dominating her head. A maid, tears streaming down her face, hovers by the bedside, her expression one of immense relief. The maid exclaims joyfully that her mistress has finally awakened. Cecilia pushes herself up, still grappling with the physical lethargy of her collapse. Immediately, the door bursts open, and her parents, the Duke and Duchess Fregato, rush into the room, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Her father, usually a figure of composed authority, looks frantic, while her mother presses her hands to her chest, confessing her terror that Cecilia might never have woken up. Cecilia observes their distress, her mind slowly piecing together her reality. She remembers the sensation of heartbreak, the crushing weight of Hubert's rejection, and the public humiliation of the annulment. Her father, trembling with indignation, paces the room. He recounts the events of the previous night with burning fury, describing Hubert's actions as unforgivable. He rages against the prince for humiliating his daughter before the entire court, declaring the annulment in such a callous manner. Her mother weeps, condemning the prince as a horrible person for inflicting such pain on their child. Watching her parents, people she knows to be gentle and kind, consumed by such anger and grief on her behalf triggers a shift within Cecilia. The overwhelming pressure she has carried, the years of pretense, and the sudden trauma coalesce into a singular desire for escape. She decides in that moment that she can no longer endure the burden. She rejects the pain. She rejects the memory. A white light seems to engulf her mind as she subconsciously chooses to purge the source of this agony. She decides that she simply does not care what happens anymore and wishes to forget the important thing that caused this suffering. The result is instantaneous and absolute. Cecilia blinks, looking at her distraught parents with genuine confusion. She asks, with total innocence, what they are talking about. When her father mentions the engagement annulment, she tilts her head, perplexed. She looks at them blankly and asks if she even had a fiancé. The room falls into a stunned silence. Her parents and the maid freeze, their eyes widening in disbelief as they realize that Cecilia has completely erased Prince Hubert from her memory. She clutches her head, feeling a lingering sense that she has forgotten something important, but the specific details of Hubert and the engagement are gone, leaving only a void. Outside the Fregato mansion, the consequences of the previous night continue to ripple. Prince Six Ray Trevania, the second prince and Hubert's younger brother, stands at the entrance. He appears somber, contrasting sharply with the arrogant image of his brother. He speaks to a servant, offering a formal apology for Hubert's extreme rudeness and explaining that he came to check on Lady Cecilia out of genuine worry. The servant, however, stands firm, acting as a gatekeeper. She informs Prince Six that the master has strictly forbidden any visitors due to the lady's poor health. The servant then leans in, lowering her voice to share a confidential matter. She reveals to Six that the shock of the event has caused Cecilia to lose a specific portion of her memories. Six's eyes widen in genuine shock at this revelation. The servant implores him to keep this information secret. Six, processing the gravity of the situation, agrees solemnly. The servant promises to convey his well wishes to Cecilia, and Six turns to leave. As he walks away from the mansion, glancing back at the balcony, his expression is one of melancholic reflection. He mutters to himself about the years of effort he thought he had invested for Hubert's sake, noting with a heavy heart that everything was destroyed the previous day. He questions if the lie he told, or perhaps the situation itself, might ultimately be for the best. The narrative then plunges into the past, rewinding 8 years to reveal the origins of this tragedy. A 10-year-old Cecilia stands in her family's drawing room, listening to her father. The Duke explains the arrangement, a marriage to bind the Trevania royal family and the Fregato ducal house. The young Cecilia, innocent and unburdened by the heavy makeup of her future self, looks confused. Her mother chides the Duke, reminding him that Cecilia is only 10 and cannot understand such complex politics. Her mother kneels to Cecilia's level, framing the engagement in simpler, warmer terms. She tells Cecilia that if she and Prince Hubert get to know each other little by little, they will surely become close friends. The Duke adds that they should aim for a relationship built on mutual respect. Cecilia, eager to please and full of childish optimism, agrees enthusiastically. However, once alone, the weight of the unknown concept of a fiancé confuses her. She wonders what exactly she is supposed to do to fulfill this role. Seeking guidance, Cecilia turns to her best friend, Ivona Oren, the daughter of a viscount. In a sunlit room filled with sweets and tea, Cecilia confesses her anxiety, admitting she doesn't know how to make the prince like her, especially since they haven't met yet. Ivona, brimming with confidence and misplaced wisdom, takes charge. She strikes a pose, declaring that she knows exactly what to do. Ivona presents the solution: sex appeal. Ivona insists that following the latest trends, specifically flashy dresses and an emphasis on allure, is the key to capturing a man's heart. She claims to have heard that the prince likes women who are sensitive to trends. Cecilia, whose concept of romance is blank, is skeptical and embarrassed by the idea of sex appeal. She blushes, unsure if she can pull off such a bold persona. But Ivona is relentless, boosting Cecilia's confidence by telling her she looks good in anything. Trusting her friend implicitly, Cecilia resolves to follow this advice for her first meeting with Hubert the next day. Cecilia pours her heart into the preparation. She hand-embroiders a handkerchief as a gift, a labor of love intended to show her dedication. Ivona praises the work as cute and wonderful, assuring Cecilia that the prince will be delighted by both the gift and her trendy appearance. Cecilia beams, happy to rely on her friend. The day of the meeting arrives. Cecilia sits in the garden, dressed in the gaudy, revealing style Ivona recommended, a stark contrast to her age and innocent demeanor. She waits nervously, clutching the handkerchief. Her heart pounds in her chest as she rehearses her goal, to make Hubert like her. However, time drags on. 30 minutes pass, and the prince has not arrived. Her maid notes the delay with concern. Cecilia, ever the optimist, makes excuses for him, suggesting he must be taking a long time to get ready. Finally, footsteps approach. Hubert arrives, not with an apology, but with a complaint about the hassle. He stands before her, a young boy with an already haughty demeanor. Cecilia immediately stands and executes her practiced curtsy, greeting him formally as Prince Hubert. She begins to introduce herself, but Hubert cuts her off abruptly. He tells her he already knows who she is and that she can skip the greetings. Hubert stares at her, his gaze critical and cold. He scrutinizes her heavy dress and makeup and asks, with blunt skepticism, if she is really 10 years old. Cecilia, flustered but maintaining her smile, confirms she is the same age as him. Trying to recover the moment, she offers the embroidered handkerchief, presenting it as a present. Hubert glances at it and rejects it instantly, saying he doesn't need it. He callously states that he only showed up for the tea party because he had to, implying that his presence alone should be enough. He turns his back on her, declaring that he has no intention of getting along with her and that an engagement decided by parents is nothing but a pain. He walks away, leaving Cecilia stunned and holding her rejected gift. As Cecilia stands alone in the garden, reeling from the rejection, a softer voice calls out to her. A young boy with dark hair and a gentle expression approaches. He apologizes for his brother's rudeness. He introduces himself as Six, the second prince. Cecilia, startled but polite, introduces herself in return. Six looks at her and, unlike his brother, offers a kind observation, though the specific words cause Cecilia to blush. He speaks to her with a basic decency she hasn't yet experienced from royalty. Six notices Cecilia's interest in the garden and invites her to walk with him if she doesn't mind. Cecilia accepts, and they stroll among the flower beds. Six points out the different varieties with ease, identifying foxglove, lupin, and Annabelle flowers. Cecilia's eyes light up with genuine joy. She clasps her hands together, exclaiming how cute and beautiful they are. She turns to Six and notes that he is very knowledgeable about flowers. Six hesitates, looking away shyly. He asks if she finds it weird for a man to know so much about flowers. Cecilia denies this immediately and emphatically. She tells him that she thinks it is very wonderful. Her validation strikes a chord with Six. He blushes and stammers, clearly touched that his efforts to memorize them were worth it. The peaceful interlude is interrupted by Cecilia's maid, who informs her that it is time to return to the mansion. Cecilia is surprised that time has passed so quickly. She turns to Six and thanks him for the walk, telling him that she loves flowers and is happy to have learned more about them thanks to him. She beams at him, her smile genuine and unmasked. Six looks at her, his face flushing. He makes a solemn promise. If she ever encounters sad things, he will help her. He asks her to please keep smiling. The flashback ends with a poignant narration. Despite becoming friends with Prince Six immediately, and despite the kindness he showed her, Cecilia's tragedy was that she continued to strive for the approval of the one person who despised her, Prince Hubert. The final panel shows Cecilia in the present day, back in her room, resolving to talk to Ivona again, unknowingly preparing to restart her life with a gap where her fiancé used to be. She determines to try hard to become friends with Hubert, unaware that this very effort is what led to her despair. The heavy iron gates of the Fregato estate rattle as they close, sealing the boundary between the ducal grounds and the outside world. Young Prince Six stands before the imposing structure, his small figure framed by the intricate metalwork and the stone pillars of the entrance. He raises a hand in a final, cheerful wave to the girl he just left, his demeanor brightening significantly after his time spent in the garden. With the carriage waiting to whisk him back to the royal palace, he turns away from the mansion, his expression shifting from the gentle smile he wore for Cecilia to a more contemplative, perhaps resigned, look as he prepares to confront his own reality. Upon returning to the castle, Six navigates the opulent corridors until he reaches the heavy double doors of his brother's chambers. He raises a fist and knocks firmly against the wood, announcing his presence with a polite request to enter. He pushes the door open without waiting for a warm welcome, stepping into a room that smells of privilege and solitude. Inside, First Prince Hubert sits comfortably in a plush armchair near the window, a large book resting on his lap featuring an illustration of a horse. Light filters through the drapes, illuminating Hubert's boredom. He barely glances up, his eyes sharp and unwelcoming. He remarks dismissively that it is only Six, adding with casual cruelty that the mere sight of his younger brother's face ruins his mood. Six ignores the barb, accustomed to the hostility. He approaches the chair, holding out the embroidered handkerchief Cecilia had worked so hard to create. He presents it to Hubert, explaining that he is delivering it on her behalf. Hubert snatches the gift with a look of distaste, sarcastically stating he will accept it with great thanks, though his tone suggests he intends to discard it the moment Six leaves. Six, undeterred by the sarcasm, presses the issue. He reprimands his elder brother, stating that showing respect to his fiancée is surely a matter of basic courtesy. He reminds Hubert that Lady Cecilia is his intended partner, emphasizing the title to drive the point home. Hubert snaps the book shut, the sound echoing in the room like a gunshot. He stands, towering over the seated boy, and sneers. He mocks the advice, attributing it to his ominous, black-haired, black-eyed younger brother, spitting the description as if it were a curse. The insult hangs in the air, targeting the physical traits that distinguish Six from the rest of the golden-haired royal family. Six's expression tightens, but he stands his ground. He retorts that he is not ominous. He argues that this black color belongs to the history of their country, implying a lineage that Hubert conveniently ignores. Six's voice drops, revealing a hint of the bitterness he usually suppresses. He observes that their father and mother clearly favor Hubert. He laments his own fortune, declaring himself unlucky to be saddled with a younger brother like Hubert, a slip of the tongue or a deliberate reversal of roles, though he likely meant he is unlucky to have Hubert as an elder brother. He questions the strangeness of their situation, wondering aloud how they could possibly be born from the same parents given their vast differences. Hubert's patience evaporates. He leans in, his face contorted with arrogance, and asks if Six knows what the people in the castle truly think of him. He points out the obvious. Both the king and queen possess beautiful blonde hair. The implication is clear and cruel. Six is an anomaly, an outsider in his own home. Six interrupts, begging Hubert to behave in a manner appropriate for a prince, trying to silence the hurtful rhetoric. Six admits that Hubert can say whatever he likes about him personally. However, Hubert cuts him off with a shout, slamming his hand against the wall or furniture to emphasize his dominance. He declares himself the superior one. He asserts the hierarchy with brutal simplicity. He is the first prince, and Six is merely the second prince. With that final decree of status, he orders Six to hurry up and get out of his room. Some time passes, and the scene shifts back to the Fregato estate, where Cecilia continues her desperate campaign to win Hubert's heart. She sits with her friend Ivona, dissecting the previous failure. Ivona, ever the optimist, suggests that perhaps Cecilia should pursue more femininity. Cecilia looks doubtful, her hand touching her cheek as she considers the heavy makeup she wore previously. She admits she feels the makeup might have been a bit too heavy, despite Ivona's assurances that she is beautiful just as she is. Ivona praises Cecilia's current outfit, claiming it is even more charming than usual, but Cecilia's mind remains focused on the elusive approval of the prince. She resolves to try harder, determined to make friends with Hubert and talk to him extensively, fearing that otherwise, her parents will worry about her future. The next scheduled meeting at the castle arrives, but Cecilia and her maid reach the royal grounds significantly earlier than planned. The maid checks her pocket watch, noting the gap in the schedule. Cecilia, feeling restless and perhaps wanting to avoid a direct, immediate confrontation with Hubert without mental preparation, suggests they go somewhere else first. She leads the way through the castle corridors, eventually finding herself in a grand hall lined with portraits of past monarchs. She stops before a large painting of the founding king. The figure in the oil painting stands regally, distinguished by his jet-black hair, the same shade that Six possesses. Cecilia gazes up at it with admiration, noting that the black color is the noble color of the founding king. Her quiet appreciation is interrupted by the shrill, unpleasant sounds of snickering nearby. Two maids stand in the hallway, their faces shadowed and indistinct, gossiping loudly enough to be heard. They speak with disdain, mocking someone for not knowing an obvious fact. One maid claims she was the one who egged them on, taking pride in her malice. They whisper about someone hurting His Highness Six, calling the perpetrator ignorant. Cecilia's eyes widen as she processes their words. She realizes they are disparaging Prince Six, likely spreading rumors about his legitimacy or his nature due to his hair color. A fire ignites within her. She steps forward, confronting the servants with a fierceness that belies her age. She calls their behavior truly shocking. She admonishes them for their ignorance of their own country's history. With conviction, she lectures them on the lineage of the founding king, explaining that although he had foreign blood, he was dearly loved by the people. She dismantles their prejudice with facts she read in a book, defending the very trait Hubert used to mock his brother. The maids tremble, terrified by the sudden dressing down from a noblewoman. Cecilia does not stop there. She declares that she must inform her father and His Majesty the King about this insolence, labeling it a serious situation. The maids panic, realizing the gravity of their slip-up. Unbeknownst to Cecilia, a figure lurks behind a nearby pillar, witnessing the entire defense. It is Prince Hubert. He watches, his cheeks flushed, looking flustered and caught off guard. He hears Cecilia defending the black hair, a trait he ostensibly despises, yet he seems strangely affected by her fierce protection of his family's history. He steps out from his hiding spot, and Cecilia collides with him. The impact jars them both. Hubert stammers, looking away, muttering that he got it and will make sure to convey that matter. He seems overwhelmed, his usual arrogance replaced by a frantic, embarrassed energy. Cecilia, recovering from the bump, recognizes him and calls out his name in surprise. Hubert, however, is already retreating. He throws his hands up, shouting for her to wait a second. He hurriedly tells her to leave the matter to him, then abruptly cancels their meeting, shouting that they should postpone today's tea party until another time. He dashes down the hallway, leaving Cecilia standing alone and bewildered. She calls after him, but he is gone. Cecilia sinks into despair. She interprets his flight not as embarrassment, but as rejection. She covers her face with her hands, horrifyingly convinced that she really messed up and that he ended up hating her. In her internal monologue, she thinks of Six, wishing that the kind, easy-to-talk-to brother was her fiancé instead. Later, Cecilia recounts the disaster to Ivona over tea and cake. She laments that she got carried away and spoke too passionately, fearing she was rude to the prince. Ivona, however, dismisses this concern entirely. She slams her hand on the table, declaring it nonsense and insisting that Cecilia said exactly the right thing. Ivona is less concerned with the moral victory and more focused on the next strategic move. She decides that their previous approach lacked impact. Ivona pulls out a fashion magazine or sketch, her eyes gleaming with a new, radical idea. She suggests Cecilia take the plunge and go aggressive with a miniskirt. Cecilia looks at the term miniski with confusion, having never heard of it. Ivona explains that it has recently become popular in the neighboring country and claims it makes a woman's legs look beautiful. She urges Cecilia to try it on, insisting it will definitely suit her. Cecilia, desperate to fix the relationship and believing Ivona is an expert, agrees despite her anxiety. The result is catastrophic. The scene shifts to the garden, where Cecilia stands in a dress with a hemline scandalously high for the conservative court. Thunder and lightning seem to crackle in the background to emphasize the severity of the failure. Hubert stares at her, his face a mask of pure disgust. He delivers a single, crushing verdict: vulgar. He elaborates, stating it is outrageous for a woman to show her legs and dismissing the idea that it is trendy. Cecilia is devastated, her soul seemingly leaving her body. However, Prince Six is there, acting as the balm to his brother's cruelty. He sits at the garden table, smiling gently, and offers Cecilia some delicious sweets he brought, inviting her to eat with him to cheer her up. He asks her not to make such a sad face. Tears stream down Cecilia's face as she looks at Six. She confesses that she feels she is failing as a fiancé. Six reassures her, stating his belief that she is trying her very best for his elder brother. Cecilia wipes her eyes, admitting that Hubert is a difficult person. She contrasts the two brothers, noting that she can talk to Six easily, but has had difficulty getting along with Hubert at all. Defeated but not broken, Cecilia returns to her war room, Ivona's tea table. Ivona listens to the latest failure but remains undeterred. She leans in close, whispering a secret she has supposedly uncovered. She claims that Hubert likes stupid women. She clarifies that he doesn't mean genuinely unintelligent, but rather women who seem a little slow or simple-minded, because it triggers his instinct to protect them. Cecilia stares at Ivona, her eyes wide with shock. The advice is the exact opposite of her natural, intelligent, and history-loving personality. However, her desperation to be liked by Hubert overrides her instincts. She internalizes this new directive. Even though she feels anxious about acting the exact opposite of her usual self, she resolves to act the part of the woman he likes wholeheartedly. She clenches her fist, determining that if this performance means His Highness Hubert will like her, she will do it. Thus, the tragic persona of the Villainess, the gaudy, simple-minded woman seen in the present day, is born from a young girl's desperate attempt to please a boy who refused to understand her.